Hello! We are fools. It's not racist to see that a large part of the so-called illiterate working classes have genuine issues that our PC masters are too cowardly to admit and confront. We who call people names need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and redisgust us. Hello, welcome to the Metropolitan Elites. That's what's happened to us. That's us. We just described. So we're going to talk now about nonsense because we know nothing. So now we're going to talk about the EU superstate. One glorious government in the middle, all lizard, with Elvis as president. Chemtrails are forced upon us from the moon, although not the real moon because we didn't really go there. The moon is just a light in the sky, so it's shine down from the light that's drawn on the sky. Jean Monnet, founding EU dude, there's a famous quote about making a superstate, but you can't tell people about it. There's this kind of quote. Even the Eurosceptics who quote it say this is a misquote. The reason they do that, it's just made up. It's not. He never said that. It was never said. And I think the argument is, the EU, it's not a monolithic operating system. It's a layered operating system with the kernel in the middle, and maybe Germany's the kernel. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know. And it's chaos. A bit like the American government, in that there can't be a conspiracy when no one agrees on anything. And that's the problem with it. Nobody agrees on anything, and you've got and obviously countries keep voting in EU skeptics to go and take all the money, and then do nothing because we don't believe in it. So there can't be a plan so much as chaos, and it's a secret conspiracy that's in the papers every day. And seriously, it's not going in one direction. Stuff happens in the EU, things are taken out, and things are put in, and then there isn't. You can't. I don't think you can track a process of moving towards superstate because it goes there and then different stuff happens. There is a quote from Churchill, which is a big one, because Churchill said we need a kind of United States of Europe. That's the big quote. And people have said that as well, yeah, we need a United States of Europe. Really, the question is, what does that mean? Because he also said, we are with Europe but not of it. We are linked but not comprised, associated but not absorbed, and should European statesmen address us and say, shall we speak for thee? I don't know why I'm doing this voice, it's not like Churchill. We should reply, nay sir, for we dwell among our own people. And if they're right, why did they lie about it? Why did they make up that quote? And then say, somewhere along the line, someone said, oh yeah, that's a misquote of something that was never said, So that's quite funny, you could do lots of satire on that. But really, what constitutes a state is the question, really. And originally it was about preventing war. That was one of its key things, and you merge the parts that involve war. That was what some of the original people involved wanted to do. And that's also one of the big Eurosceptic fears, is a Euro army. I think they'll march in and take away their cigars. So kind of like a Euro NATO, and that's been talked about. That could happen, potentially. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't really know. Probably bad. Massive armies of lots of countries is probably bad, isn't it? I don't know. But does a state mean a single market? There already is one. So one country has one currency, doesn't it? And they have, but we're not in it, and we're not likely to join it anytime soon, because it's a bit crap. Country has a common culture, common nationalism, you have your common fascists. So maybe long term that would happen. Maybe long term that would happen anyway. It's very, very culturally diverse is Europe, isn't it? That's the thing, and that's one of the arguments, isn't it? That we're very different. Although they're only there, it's not like from one American state to the other, it's much more different. The French, they're not like us, are they? Yeah, and so you can talk about, what that state would be. Would it be a federation? Would it be a republic? Or a federal republic? So the whole thing of this idea of an EU superstate, which is pushed a lot by the Eurosceptics, nobody really knows what it means. Or is it already there? Has it already happened? Are we not part of it? Are we part of it? Does it matter? Unless we can decide what a superstate is, we don't know, do we?
No, would you call the United States a superstate?
Yeah, we know that, don't we? But that's it. And there's been talk of that mode of government with the Senate and a president. They've talked about that structure, but that doesn't necessarily mean take everything away from British Parliament and the president is now like Obama. There's levels of in between, aren't there?
Well, this is the issue comes down to this idea of sovereignty. That's the word that's always used. And sovereignty is the right to govern oneself, basically.
Yeah.
And the suggestion is that it is going to Brussels, and the direction of travel is more towards Brussels, increasing federalisation with this idea of subsidiarity. So. Do you understand the concept of subsidiarity?
Only simply.
So basically, subsidiarity means that power should be devolved to the furthest the most local part where it can, unless it can be done more efficiently by the next layer up. So it's to stop the concentration of power in the centre and to sort of push power out as far as it can go.
Yeah.
Which would automatically, that wouldn't really constitute a superstate, which is what I'm not sure the United States is a superstate in the sense that individual states have a lot of power. Their own union. You've got different rules in different states, and it's been an issue that's come up with healthcare, and things are centralised where it makes sense to centralise it because it can be done better.
Yeah.
With the EU, the idea of federalisation is there's a battle going on. So you've got the council, which is made up of the heads of the individual countries. Yeah. Well, I think they kind of like the idea of not a federal system, more like an intergovernmental talking shop, where they get together on a semi-regular basis and talk about issues, a bit like the United Nations, because essentially that keeps the power with them. They're interested in that. But the EU Parliament, which is elected by us, by the citizens of the EU.
Some of us don't vote, and that's the problem.
And the Commission are heavily federal in their thinking, because they are federal institutions. Yeah. So there's this sort of battle going on between the council and the Commission and the Parliament, and given the sort of power that the Commission has, that's a sort of a one-way battle. Now the council can sort of limit how much power Europe can take, but the direction of travel definitely is more and more the competencies of Europe with each treaty have got bigger and bigger and bigger. And at the very beginning, the Schuman Declaration, I don't think that was the thing you're on about. Schuman Declaration stated that government will not be built all in one go, it will be built on a series of successes. So with each success, we'll breed the confidence to go on to the next stage and next stage and next stage, with the idea that eventually it will become
one glorious whole.
And the core European countries, because we weren't one of the core European countries, they all have federalism ways of thinking in their mind, sort of thing. So it's natural for them to think along those lines.
Yeah.
So to suggest that Europe will not become more federalised, I think is a little bit naive. It will become more federalised. This talk of a common defence strategy, well, that was discussed right at the beginning. Should there be a defence thing within Europe? And the answer was no. But it looks increasingly likely that it's going to happen, and it's another competence that the EU will take in.
Yeah.
It's a matter of time before all these things are done, sort of, on EU, because it makes sense to do it because of globalisation and issues becoming more supranational. So we see this idea of all these immigrants coming over from
foreign lands,
from Africa and the Middle East and stuff like that. This can be handled much more efficiently on a supranational basis. So the EU acting in conjunction. How can we handle these so that Greece doesn't get the full burn? Where can we put these people? Should we take these people? Yeah. So, I mean, if everyone thinks like David Cameron does, and we should lock the doors in EU, then that can happen on an EU level, which would stop people coming over. But if it's a lot of individual countries, it only takes one country to slip, and it starts the influx. No, I think we should take more refugees. From the war-torn, because we're playing a heavy part.
If we're the ones bombing them, then
we should do that. But I mean, handling that on an EU level makes sense. Yeah. And more things are making sense. Trade like this, with we hear a lot about China dumping cheap steel in Europe.
Yeah.
And that Europe want to do something about this. Well, it makes sense to handle that on a European level, because if we don't, China dumps a load of cheap steel in France, say, or Germany, and then we buy from Germany, effectively the same thing's happening. So unless we handle it as a group, it's going to come in by one way or the other.
Yeah, one country or something.
Yeah. So I think when considering the EU question, I think you really have to assume that federalisation will continue and it will broaden its scope. How far it goes, I don't know. It's a constant sort of tussle between certain states and the council to try and slow it, but that's all they're doing. They're slowing progress, they're not stopping it. The idea that David Cameron has stopped this by opting out of ever closer integration is is laughable, really.
Well,
It's going to continue regardless of what we do.
That's a wishy-washy statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
So well, that's not happening, but we'll still do this.
So yeah, taxation is another one as well. I mean, taxation. You talk about Facebook paying more and Google sending money all over. If we're going to deal with this, and companies are going to come to line on their own accord, it has to be done on a supranational basis.
Yeah.
Because money's really easy to move around these days. They're just going to dump it in another tax haven and move it to another tax haven. You're just going to end up constantly chasing your tail unless you deal with it on a worldwide basis. So I think it is going to happen.
But again, what it's not clear what that is. So
No.
is it, there's a huge amount of movement in between what that concept actually is, isn't there? So
Yeah, you need to define what a superstate is.
yeah.
I think the thing that will stop the EU looking like a superstate to most people is this idea of subsidiarity.
Yeah.
i.e. they will come out, but ultimately directives will be done from Brussels. And it's interesting that the government moans a lot about all this stuff happening in Europe and this isn't good. There's not one thing that the Commission has brought before the Council or the Council discussed that our government has voted against.
Not one.
Not one.
Well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? Because of the type of government we've got, they're not going to tell us what's really happening anyway. They're going to play to public opinion and twist things around and all that stuff. Did you know about what Boris does in London? I don't know, it's actually him personally. the big problem with pollution in London, which is apparently the worst in Europe, apparently. So what Boris is doing, he sends people out to spray stuff around the sensors. They've got these pollution sensors, so he sends people out to spray to make them pick up the wrong data. And supposedly some of them are broken. He's just left them broke. So he's fixing the figures, so we don't have to pay the fine. And London is still a horrible hole of cesspit of hell, which it would still be anyway. I don't know. Yeah, and so there is something where without the EU, it wouldn't even need to do that.
I genuinely didn't know which way to jump at the start, which was quite surprising itself because I was quite pro-EU for many years. And then this started, and it was the Greece thing.
Yeah, it was
really made me start thinking about it. Hang on, have I got this right? I'm starting to coalesce on a way of thinking now. It's sort of, I'm pretty sure I know what the decision is now, but I don't know which decision to make yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking staying, but I'm not by the decision. But ultimately, we know they're arseholes. They don't do things the way we think they should be done. But then again, if Jeremy Corbyn became Prime Minister, it will be the other way around, and the EU will be the balancing force in a much more neoliberal direction, and they are very neoliberal already. So that would be different, But it's a balancing act between one bunch of arseholes and one other bunch of arseholes. Neither are very democratic. We've voted them, but only just. And lots of it's secret, and lots of stuff happens that we didn't vote for. And that happens in London, and it happens in Brussels. So
surrender.
Might as well give up. But yeah, so which do you want? Which is worse? Do you want the tempering foreigners coming in and tempering us? Or do you want complete control from London, even if the government who's got in has only just got in on basically lying, and then does a load of different stuff to what they said they would do, etc.
Yeah, there's something very appealing about something you said on Facebook a few weeks ago. People vote, people get.
Yeah,
and it was about some
country votes, country gets.
Country votes.
Teacher shortage, I think it was.
Teacher shortage, yeah. So there's something very appealing about that notion that even though we've got a very hostile government to the people of this country, or whatever you want to call it, there's something satisfying about the fact, well, actually people did vote for it, so they're getting what they voted for, essentially. Whereas with the EU, there is that sort of feeling. There are things that the government want to do which the EU is tempering.
Yeah.
Slightly. Is that justified?
I mean,
I don't know.
The problem is they're voted for too, but nobody votes. Only the rabid people vote.
Yeah.
So
and this is my point. Yeah. I mean, if sovereignty is important to you, this idea of being sort of like in the EU, but not all the way in, being a sort of a dissident within the EU, if you know what I mean, just sort of moaning about it all the time, but being in it because of the market. That isn't a solution. If you're going to be in the EU, you need to be all the way in because it's going to continue to develop. And unless you're at the centre, it's not going to develop in the way that you think it should develop, and you are going to lose national identity.
Yeah. No, this is the sorry.
If you're not comfortable with that idea of going all the way into Europe and really sort of going so you can shape it the way you want to shape it, then you should leave.
Yeah, because otherwise we'll just have things done to us.
Yeah.
But here's another way to look at it. Has Cameron already screwed it up? He's already taken our bargaining chip. He's already alienated everybody.
Definitely.
So in which case, is it too late? Has he ruined it and we might as well leave anyway? But if we did leave, that's years of negotiation. He'll have to go back there again. Cameron again goes back there to negotiate.
It wouldn't be David Cameron. David Cameron would be by the Tories if...
you reckon?
Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, the way that the argument's already gone, Project Vermont 2 is already alienating cabinet members.
Yeah.
God knows what the bulk of the Conservative Party think about his style. So I think there would be a little bit of retribution / get out of here, we don't want you anymore, and you probably would end up with Boris.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it's not going to be Michael Gove, is it? Is it?
Well, it might be.
Well, I mean, what, 2 months ago? Yeah, 2 months ago. Do you remember Jeremy Corbyn's cabinet? They disagree with him on things. It's a shambles. It's chaos. But this is different.
Shadow cabinet.
Yeah. This is different, obviously, because obviously everyone disagreeing with David Cameron. It's just good because it's debate.
Okay, well, I mean, that's our third episode in the
Yeah, that was episode 3 of EU The Facts.
We'll do some more.
Mm.
They're quite lengthy, I know, but if you're interested in these things, I find it.
Well, we did mention the idea of doing what would happen next.
Yeah.
So maybe next week we'll do that. We'll do what would happen if we leave, what would happen if we stay.
Yeah.
Which nobody really knows, so we'll just make stuff up. Excellent. Thank you. See you next time for more lizard stuff.